Hey, what's going down? It's the Cassius Morris Show. Thanks for tuning in. Out here looking alive in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. March 14th, 2018. Kicking off the show with a little bit of Drizzy and Block Boy. Man, that song came out and I feel like it was an instant classic. It just caught on fire right away. We're actually going to be talking about Drake on this episode a little bit and Block Boy coming up in a little bit. Now, this is a talking music podcast, something that I actually have a lot of fun doing. It's a mixture of three things. There'll be some personal narrative segments on some episodes, including this one. So on this one, I'm going to be reviewing the Carlos Santana concert I had the privilege of seeing just the other night. We also play some hot-ass tunes of all different genres coming up in this hour. And I'm also going to be going through a couple of news stories. I think I actually want to kick the show off with one of these news stories. But first, I want to give a little word of business. If you enjoy audio and digital media online, of course you enjoy podcasts, you're listening to this right now, you will probably love audible.com. Now, Audible is a service that gives you access to thousands and thousands of audiobooks, similar to video streaming services like Netflix, and you can go through the catalog and pick from all of them. They have some super interesting stuff on there, and if you want to check it out for free first without doing the subscription service, you can go to audibletrial.com/TCMS. That's audibletrial.com/TCMS to download your free audiobook today to your tablet, iPhone, iPod Touch, desktop, laptop. If you have anything that can access the internet, you can pretty much download Audible. So check out audibletrial.com/TCMS to get your free audiobook today. So right off the top here, I have to get into this news story. Vocalist Bruno Mars is being heavily targeted by a YouTube show called The Grapevine in an episode that they did discussing whether or not they thought that Bruno Mars was a cultural appropriator, aka a culture vulture, someone from a different race demographic coming in and taking elements of different cultures and taking them and making them mainstream. That's the theory behind this term, cultural appropriation, and it's a very, very controversial term, and now Bruno Mars is wrapped up in this. So this show, they did this episode, and I gotta say, by watching this episode, it's a 30-minute thing in total. I do have a clip here. It seems like some of the folks in this panel are incredibly biased and misinformed. So let's get into this first clip. There's a lot of key elements in this first clip because this is right off the top of their episode. Let's hear this.
Of course, I think Bruno Mars is a cultural appropriator, but I don't think that means that he doesn't make great music. I think he creates great art, but a lot of cultural appropriators do. The thing about Bruno Mars is that his ambiguity, I use that good
his
word.
racial.
His racial ambiguity helps him transcend genres and cultures. He's literally the guy invited to everybody's cookout because you don't know if he's black, you don't know if he's Latino, you don't know if he has white in him. He succeeds on so many different levels and with so many different genres that it works for him.
So do you think if he was like black, like your complexion, he would have the success?
Absolutely not. Hell no.
No.
Hell no. You see where Aaron Hall is?
Who?
Exactly. Aaron Hall, he needs to.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it there. I'm absolutely disgusted by the comments that I just heard. So I want to go by point to address why. So first off, the gentleman says that Bruno Mars is racial ambiguity, and he was so proud of himself for knowing that big word. Congratulations, pal. Was something that would make him the guy that everybody wanted at the cookout, the guy that they didn't know what race he was, so everybody was just okay with him and they wanted him around. As a mixed race gentleman who's half black and half white, I say, first of all, how dare you? How dare you speak on the issues that someone of mixed race faces and then turn around in the same sentence and tell people that they have no clue what someone who's full black faces and that they should be ashamed of themselves if they even speculate or try to say something about it. Second of all, even if Bruno Mars was someone who not everybody knew his race, so they all liked him and he did very, very well in many departments, oh my goodness, the humanity. I mean, what's so bad about that? What's so bad about a guy who nobody really knows or cares what his race is being wildly successful? You know, I went to Barbados on vacation because that's what the other half of me is Bayesian. Myself and my mixed race family was almost, not literally, but almost ran out of restaurants. We were almost stared out of restaurants I've experienced incredible prejudice and what I would call racism towards myself for being mixed race. So again, absolutely disgusting, the comments that I just heard. So the next part, he was asked if Bruno Mars would have become this successful if he were full black, and himself and many others in the room erupted and said absolutely not. He wouldn't have had any success if he was full black, and he's just appropriating because people want their black culture from non-black bodies. That was one of the main foundations and points in this video, is that people they do want the black culture, but they don't want it from black folks. So I decided to pull up the Billboard Top 100 list, and we're going to take a little look at the top 10 people on the list for the week of March 17th, 2018. So number 10 on the list is Stir Fry by Migos, featuring 3 black gentlemen. Okay, so that's number 10 on the list. Number 9 is Pray For Me by The Weeknd and Kendrick Lamar. Now, The Weeknd, Canadian gentleman, may not look African, but he is, and Kendrick Lamar, of course, a black man. We'll go up to number 7, Look Alive, featuring Black Man, Block Boy, and of course, Drake. Now, we go up to number 4, Post Malone featuring Ty Dolla $ign, black gentleman, wildly successful artist. And of course, we go up to number 1 on the Billboard Top 100 list, and it's Drake with God's Plan. Of course, half black and half white, just like myself. And as he said, black excellence, but I guess when it comes to me, it ain't the same. Which is a very good point, because here we have people screaming and crying about the fact that there's no black people being represented and that their culture is being taken and people don't want to see black people in mainstream culture. Yet we have a gentleman who's half black and number 1 on the Billboard list, and nearly 7 out of 10 of the top artists on the list are African American. So to say, and Bruno Mars, by the way, number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. Congratulations, by the way, with Finesse with Cardi B. So let's put it this way, okay? Let's say that song number 2 on the Billboard list, by Ed Sheeran, called Perfect. Let's say that song was written and composed exactly as it is now, but they ended up handing it off to Sampha, the UK singer, a really talented guy, to sing it. I 100% believe that the song Perfect by Sampha, rather than Ed Sheeran, would have been number 2 on the Billboard list as I was looking at this. But since Ed Sheeran sang it and delivered it, Ed Sheeran's number 2 on the list. So the nerve to suggest that Bruno Mars wouldn't still be at number 3 if he was full black, when again we have almost 7 out of 10 people that's right, 10, who are black who are on this list. Did I mention Young Thug and Camila Cabello? I mean, this is ridiculous. So I'd just like to ask these folks over at this show, the Grapevine, maybe just take a second to look around, and maybe you can answer me these questions if your points are correct. Why is it that when I go to hip-hop concerts, it gets getting increasingly difficult to find black people in the audience? It's all white people in the audience, for the most part, and the black people are on stage. We're paying, not we, because I'm not full white, but we have stadiums full of white people paying to see black folks on stage, and they're dominating the charts. So what does that tell you? Does that tell you they aren't being represented? Or does that tell you that you're full of shit? Because that tells me that you're full of shit. And when you're full of shit, that instantly discredits everything else you have to say from here on. So you might want to watch what you say, might want to do a little research. Just my 2 cents on it. But we have to take a break. I want to get into some music. This is off Young Dolph's new EP, and this is my favorite rapper, Young Dolph, out of Memphis right now. Super talented guy. And this is off his new EP. It's 20 minutes long, and it's called, I'll censor it, Brothers Get Shot Every Day. And I did want to introduce the song Playa as it's written, but I don't want to say Playa because that's cultural appropriation. So I'll say Player. Here's Young Dolph with Player here on the Cassius Morris Show. TCMS with a little bit of that Young Dolph. I absolutely love this EP. I love the age we're in where you can put out a 5-song EP that's 20 minutes long, and every second out of that 20 minutes is absolute fire, rather than have to go through the process of signing a deal with someone and releasing a full body of work and then going through the process of picking filler tracks that don't belong on the album in order to fill it out. That's one of the things I admire the most about Young Dolph as an artist. You know, he remains unsigned. The guy's been offered up to $12 million to sign a record deal, and he's refused because he wants to be a self-made millionaire, collect all of his money on his own, and of course own the rights to everything, instead of sign a 360 deal with some kind of big corporation. So I think it's a much better choice. Quick note, the Cassius Morris Show is brought to you by BlackoutX.com. What is BlackoutX, you might ask? They're a high-end brand of legal herb, legal concentrate, and of course nicotine and non-nicotine vaporizers. If you're inhaling smoke of any kind at this moment, you might want to take a look at vapes in order to at least take down the amount of smoke consumption in your lungs. That's the entire thing. If you replace some of the smoke for some of the vaporizer, it's a little bit easier on your body. So check them out if you smoke anything legal, of course at blackoutx.com, and you can use the promo code 420CMX, that's 420CMX at checkout to save 15% off all items, and they're highly recommended by this radio host right here, although I won't have a radio gig for long if I don't learn how to speak. Hey, speaking of radio, tonight is Wednesday, so of course it's very exciting, and I don't know if everybody's aware of this. I think I talked about it recently, but I am back on as a host on CJSR. I actually do think I talked about this, but if you want to catch the show, it's Comic Genius over at CJSR 88.5 FM in Edmonton, and I'm taking over for Lars Kallio, the veteran Edmonton comedian. He did the show for 12 years, and he handed it off to me to host with Norm Shaw, the hypnotist and DJ, and we have a riot. It's 2 hours every Wednesday. It's 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. It's a little bit late, but don't worry. We actually have our website up right now at cjsr.com, where you can find all of the episodes after the original air date in podcast form. So if you want to hear more of me, maybe in a different show capacity other than the Cassius Morris Show, flexing my wings and talking to some different kinds of guests, as well as being on the air here, make sure to check it out. Again, Wednesdays, 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, cjsr.com, and in the whip, CJSR FM 88.5. So, I want to touch on a little something cool that happened the other day. I was just hanging out at the crib, and I got a call from my mother. So I answered it, and she just asked me out of the blue, you know, we say hello, hi, whatever. She says, "Would you like to go see Santana with me?" And it's sort of like one of those situations where somebody's like, "Do you want $100?" It's like, did you really have to ask me that? But I'm like, yes, absolutely I do. I definitely want to go see Santana with you. That would be amazing. I have shared that I've experienced some concerts with my mother before. I think the most recent one was Roger Waters. I can't remember the name of the tour now, actually. It's been a little while. But it was an amazing tour. It was the one he did right after The Wall. And as I mentioned on that episode, my mother and I have bonded over all kinds of different rock music, and not just rock, all kinds of music, specifically a lot of rock groups, though. And Santana's one of them. I remember let me make this clear first. I'm not a huge diehard Santana fan either, like I am of some other bands that you might hear me talk about. You know, I can be like an encyclopedia about a lot of groups. But Santana, I consider myself one of the greatest hits fans. Now, if you aren't exactly sure what I mean, there's greatest hits fans at every concert, and I guarantee you'll probably end up being one of them at a certain point. They usually come when a family friend of theirs wants them to come, or if they just know one or two greatest hits, and they really don't know any of the other meat or core of the band's music, and they don't listen to it. They just know those hits. Unfortunately, that was me in this situation. I sort of look at it two ways. I don't really mind it too much because I'm there filling out a seat. I'm there applauding, and I'm an engaging audience member. I'm not just going to sit there on my phone the whole time. I'll take one or two photos. And I'm not going to be bothering anybody. But you do see those people who bother you sometimes at these shows. But I digress. So the concert was at the newly built Rogers Place, and we decided to go. And then I figured it was in weeks and weeks and weeks. And I was just sitting there one day, and a couple days after this phone call, and I get told we're going to Santana tomorrow. So I said, oh, damn, here we go. So we showed up to the Rogers Place, and I figured there'd probably be a really big line to get in, because in classic Morris fashion, we did arrive a little bit late. And I don't want to make this classic Morris fashion. It was funny. As we were driving in, my mother looked at me, and she looked at the clock, and then she looked back at me, and she said, when you're, you know, going to your own things all the time and you're driving there and you're living on your own, etc., will you continue on the Morris family legacy of being late? And I said, that's actually a good question. I don't know. You know, there is an argument for people demonstrating behavior that they've been shown. There certainly is an argument for that. But I think it's up to the individual to break those patterns on their own. So we did arrive a little bit late. We went through security with no problems, and we went down to our seats. We got some nice lower bowl tickets, and we're walking in, and we're about 3 songs in, and right away Santana just hits us with a crazy, crazy guitar solo. And it was really cool. You know, he was exactly how I wanted him to be. A tall, skinny Spanish man. He was wearing his big white Santana hat, and he had his white slacks on, his dress pants, and I think he had the white pointy shoes, the pointy sort of crocodile dress shoes, I'm pretty sure as well, although I was a little bit far back. But he was just in his element, and he was playing so much, and he sounded really good. One point of constructive criticism, because I think any review is shit if there isn't some kind of constructive criticism attached to it. I noticed right away that the sound overall for the venue was a little bit low, but more specifically, Carlos Santana's guitar sound was actually quite a bit low as well. I would have liked it to be jacked up. I figured if you're going to see Santana, the guitar is going to be the prominent centerpiece of the entire show, but it didn't happen that way. So that was just something I noticed. Throughout the show, the lights were really, really good. I found that they engaged you enough. It almost felt like I was at some sort of Grammy performance on an award show. The lighting wasn't overly intricate. It wasn't overly detailed, but it hit the spot. They had 3 spotlights. In the background lighting, it worked well. They also had a few horizontal sort of rectangular shaped panels, and they'd have about 4 of them on the top left of the stage by the screens, and then 4 of them on the top right. And they were fairly small, but it would be like the bottom one was smaller, and then it'd get a little bit bigger in the second, and a little bit bigger in the third, etc. And each strip was showing some sort of pattern or design to go along with the visuals of the band on stage. For example, some tie-dye or stuff like that. It's kind of the stuff that you would see on the typical old Santana t-shirts in the 70s and things along those lines. So that was really cool to see. I thought that was a nice element. I also really enjoyed how he incorporated a lot of different groups' songs throughout the night. And it's funny because my mother, of course, she has such a profound and deep love for music, and she's been around longer than I have. She was picking up on songs that they were sort of jamming on in the middle of songs that I wasn't even picking up on. She'd say, "Oh, that's some old John Lee Hooker. Look at that." And I'd say, "Oh, you know, that's not something that I recognize." And it's on the way home, we started listening to some more John Lee Hooker, and I said, "Hey, I've heard quite a few of his songs. It just didn't have that name recognition that should usually come up." So it was great. And Voodoo Child is another one that he broke into. Voodoo Child was spectacular. I actually wasn't expecting to see that live from him. And I've always wanted to see, Stevie Ray Vaughan or Jeff Beck or Gary Moore or Santana, somebody legendary on the guitar, break it down with that Voodoo Child solo and the whole breakdown and everything. So to get him doing that in the Rogers Place was a privilege. It was an honor to watch him play. I hope his guitar was at least 18 years of age. I can definitely say that. No, but it really was an honor and a pleasure. A couple more notes of criticism and just comments generally throughout the show. There were 3 drummers in the back, and I was told that the percussion section of Santana's show was what was really going to knock me on my ass. And I gotta say, they're 100% correct. They had the one drummer with basically cymbals and a steel drum kit that he was playing on with a whole wide variety of sticks, and he was on the far stage left. Then they had in the middle a woman. She was an African American woman with nice hair, like long braids, just beautiful hair, and she was just playing so strong, just with her whole entire body. And it was just so cool watching all 4 of those limbs play. And she had the classic sort of mid to late 80s drum heads with the black circles in the middle of each one, to just kind of show you where to hit on the drum. And it sort of looked like that Eric Carr from Kiss kind of thing from the 80s. And it was really cool, watching her. They had the drum cam behind her, so you got to just see that 80s drum setup. So whenever it flashed to that, it really sort of reminded me of an 80s show, and it kind of brought me there in a way. I always love times like that. It's like I mentioned on the Guns N' Roses episode when they were showing Slash on the screens, and they were showing, the parts of the massive 60,000 seat stadium that didn't have people sitting in it, so you couldn't see people with their smartphones. And I just saw Slash on the screen play, and I said, this feels like 1993. I mean, this feels like I'm at the real Guns N' Roses experience. And they also had some African drums being played down to the right by a gentleman as well, who was really, really super talented. So all three of them really played well off each other. And the female in the middle actually got to take the drum solo, which was the only solo in the show. At a Carlos Santana show, there wasn't a guitar solo, something I didn't expect. As a drummer, I found her solo was technically very solid from a technical standpoint of playing the drums with your body. She's a very skilled drummer. And I think that it's something that would hit really, really good on the ear of somebody who isn't familiar with the mechanics of the drums or maybe doesn't play the drums. I love Zakk Wylde, but I hear a lot of people say the same thing about Zakk Wylde, that technically he's amazing, but for some people, his solos just don't have the musical flow that it could have. Again, I don't feel that way. Some people just feel that way. But that's sort of how I felt about this drum solo. But she played hard, she played her ass off, and she did a really good job. I'm not trying to take away. It's just my job here to say what's what. Going on with the show, something that my mother actually told me, she leaned over and told me, is that Santana is a very spiritual person. Something I wasn't aware of. I don't follow him on Facebook, and apparently he posts these long Facebook posts just about spirituality and things along those lines, and world peace and things like that. So throughout the show, there were some slides that came up on the screen with visuals of different places in the world, and it would say, some sort of sentence that would be a message about peace or humanity or love or getting along or something like that. And these slides I found looked incredibly amateurish. I was actually very surprised that they allowed those to go up on the screens. Picture when you go to Microsoft PowerPoint and you pick a photo, and then you go and you write text over the photo. Don't even change the default font of your text. You just write it and put it up there. That's exactly what these slides look like. And I can't picture what else it could have been. It literally looked like somebody just wrote something on a PowerPoint slide and put it up on the screens in major arenas all across North America. When it came up once, it sort of bothered me. When it came up twice, it bothered me a bit more. When it came up a third and fourth and fifth time, and the fifth time being at the very end of the show, for a song that was about 7.5 minutes long about world peace, having a message up here, looking that amateurish really took away from the performance. It was like, I don't even want to support this cause just because of... No, I'm just joking. But really, it looked very amateurish to me. So I think that if they would have at least scrolled down to one or two fonts down, to even... beef it up a little bit, make it look semi-professional, that would have been cool. And during that last song that was all about world peace, people started to get up and leave. People started to go. There was a lot of sort of what I like to call veiled racial and political content in this show. Now, I know that artists, of course, have every single right to express themselves in any way they want. That's the beauty of being an artist, especially a musical artist, a performance artist. You have the right to express yourself however you want. And if part of that expression is your racial or political views, while I may not want to hear about it while I'm at your concert, I certainly respect the right to discuss it and the right to add that into the performance. Little sip of that ginger ale there. I'm not getting paid for that. I shouldn't have given that a shout out. But the amount of content about it in this show was a little much. So Santana in the middle of the show, he starts talking to the audience, sort of a diatribe. He's, waving at everybody, getting everybody amped up, whatever. And then he launches into this thing about no matter what race you are, and no matter what sex you are, or what creed or heritage or sexual orientation. And it sort of gets into this territory where I'm like, who thinks Santana cares what race I am? Who thinks Santana cares what sex I am? Who is thinking about this right now? What I was thinking about was the kick-ass guitar licks that I was hearing, the drum, bass, and the keys. That's all I was thinking. I don't know what this whole thing is all about. Again, I respect the right to express it, but it happened to me at Metallica as well. James Hetfield, Metallica family, we love you so much. And, that's great. I'm going crazy. And they go, yeah, we love you, Edmonton Metallica family, regardless of your sexual orientation, or if you're transgendered, and it's like, I got it. You love us. I got it. I got it at first. You love everybody. We're all family. You don't need to add the regardless of sexual orientation. Nobody's mind is really going there at this point. I understand that we have someone in office that the general public, including myself, really doesn't like. But how about we keep our eggs in the proper baskets here and discuss what needs to be discussed at the proper times? Can we do that? Can we please just do that? Because it's tough living in this environment where everything is being turned into a racial and political situation. Almost everything. And the sad part is that even this show is, and thousands of shows across the world are, that wouldn't have even been discussing race, not because all races aren't, adequate, but just because it doesn't need to be discussed. I'm not a racist person. I don't think we need to be discussing race. But it's a very multi-layered issue. There's more than one side of it. And I'm simply in a position with a platform to share how I feel about it. But I know that there's a lot of people who feel a lot of different ways about it. And I think they should be expressing that just as I am. So there we go. I want to get into some music now. This is a clip from Black Sabbath's final concert in the end of 2016 in Birmingham, England, back in the birthplace of Black Sabbath. And I saw Sabbath twice on this tour, actually, at the Edmonton and Calgary shows that Ozzy ended up canceling due to sinusitis, and he actually came back and made them both up. So, meant a lot to us, Oz, man. Thank you for doing that. And here's Black Sabbath with their last ever in history performance of the mighty NIB. Here it is on the Cassius. A little bit of Black Sabbath here on the Cassius Morris Show. Nice, always great hearing that. I got out of the shower the other day and I was blasting that while washing my face and such, and it's funny, it reminds me of all the waves that I sort of jump on sometimes. I'll jump on these waves with certain artists, and Black Sabbath is one of those artists that I'll jump on the wave every time I see them live. I'm such a huge fan of theirs, but it's just, I burn myself out so bad. The first time I saw them live was 2013, and before and after that concert, I went through about a year and a half of just pure obsession over them because it was just the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. And I listened to them so much in that year and a half that I just stopped. And then when they were coming back to Edmonton and Calgary after I'd moved for that farewell tour I had just discussed, that set it off again. And after that, it was just years where all I listened to was Sabbath, and I just analyzed everything about it. Still a band that's really near and dear to me today, and we will be talking about them on this podcast in an album review fairly soon. I'm thinking about something, and I just want to share this before I get off the air here after playing another song, because it's just something that I think really needs to be said, and I just tweeted it during the break there, but I kind of want to expand on it some more. The tweet here, I just put up that today my depression told me I couldn't do it. It told me I was too tired to work out, so I did an extra set of each exercise. It told me I couldn't do the podcast, so I recorded one of my hottest shows of the year so far, which I hope you guys agree, by the way, listening, because I'm talking about this. Yes, we are victims of this, but we can't give up. And that is basically my common sense approach to dealing with depression and anxiety. And I just really wanted to share this before I get off the air. As I've discussed on this show before, I've been able to not remedy, not cure, but manage, and that's a very key word, manage my depression just with the simple common sense thinking, because people are looking for this fix. And I think people want the fix to be something that's complicated because the issue of depression is such a complicated issue. And the strange thing about anxiety and depression is that they're complicated issues. However, unless you have such a severe chemical imbalance in your brain that you need medication to live a normal life, because there are tons of people who have depression, and none of these tactics I'm about to give will work. They will be just left riddled with depression, feeling unable to get up, that wet blanket feeling. And, you know, maybe I do have that sort of imbalance. I don't know. But the way I've chosen to remedy it is just with the common sense approach. Yes, I'm feeling depressed. Okay, I wake up in the morning, I'm feeling depressed. Okay, what am I also feeling? I'm also tired. Okay, so now I'm depressed and tired. So I'm going to go get a cup of coffee so then I'm not tired anymore. So I am going to be depressed, but I'm not going to be tired anymore. I don't feel like working out because I'm depressed, okay? However, if I work out, it'll make me feel a little bit better. It's not going to cure my depression. I'm going to be depressed, but I'm also going to get to feel the runner's high and the endorphins or whatever of doing a quick workout or going on a quick walk or just getting out of the house for a little bit or calling a family member for 5 minutes. These little common sense things are almost as effective as other clinical things. Just, you know, common things that will make you feel better. You know, if you're not going to go the medication route, that's my advice. Don't look for something that's a crazy fix. Don't look for crazy solutions. Just do things that are going to make you feel better no matter what. Okay, I don't care how hungover you are. If you go run on a treadmill for 30 minutes, you will naturally get a runner's high, and you will probably feel shitty with the runner's high, but you'll also get the runner's high. Wouldn't you rather that than just feel shitty? That's the whole point here. So just take care of yourselves. Be kind to yourself. Don't judge yourself for having these issues and feeling the way that you do. It's completely normal. And just don't give up, and don't let yourself get beat up by this disgusting bully of an illness that I really wish didn't exist. And I know anybody who has it wishes it doesn't exist, but it does exist, and we're going to live with it every day of our lives. So the question is not whether to get rid of it or not. For me, the question is how to adapt to your brain chemistry, the brain that you live in, the life that you live, in affecting how you feel on a day-to-day basis. Is it a overnight fix? No. My depression's been out of control for the past 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And, you know, I'm taking steps to see how I can feel better. You know, I drink alcohol. You know, maybe sometimes 4 or 5 nights a week. I don't get drunk, but I do drink alcohol. So I'm looking at this, I'm saying alcohol is a depressant. You're drinking it all the time or semi-frequently. It's in the background. It's doing things to you. You know, if you have depression, you already have those low levels of serotonin and the other chemicals in your brain. They're critically low. If you're drinking, it's going to bring them, you know, basically when a person's hungover, I feel like it brings you down to where I am with my normal depression. And when I'm hungover, it brings me down to an all-time low of something that I can't even describe because my levels in my brain in the happiness department because of the depression are so low. I'm not a doctor. I'm simply saying this is my theory here. So, you know, like I say, man, take care of yourself, be good to yourself, and we can get through this. We're all going to get through this, you know. That's my main message here. I'm sorry if I got a little bit off topic or all over the place, but this means a lot to me, and I know there's a lot of people out there who can be helped by that. So, going to end the show with one more song before we wrap it up for the week. It's been a really fun show. It's a good warm-up. I'm going to be on par for CJSR tonight. And I just love doing this, and I love you guys. So let's get into this next song, the final song. This one goes out to my homie, Andrew McBurney, over in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Shout out to you, Andrew. Thank you for being such a great friend to me over the years and staying in contact with me, even for years after I moved out of there. You know, I just got a message from him the other day, and I moved out of Halifax for at least 3.5 years ago now. And I do have friends that I can communicate with every day, but I almost think it's more difficult to communicate with someone intermittently when you're long distance like that. So thank you, Andrew, for not only being a great friend, but showing me Chance the Rapper in the beginning with this tape and song. And this song, Cocoa Butter Kisses by Chance the Rapper, always reminds me of Andrew in our rebellious, mischievous 10th grade ways when he showed me this mixtape, Acid Rap. And it's Chance the Rapper featuring Vic Menza and Twista here on the Cassius Morris Show, talking about the side of smoking that nobody really talks about. Your family members smelling what you were just smoking on and reacting. Chance the Rapper, Vic Menza, and Twista with Cocoa Butter Kisses here on the Cassius Morris Show. Killer song. You know, I can't quite say it reminds me of a carefree time in my life because my freshman year of high school certainly wasn't carefree. However, the carefree moments that did occur during this time, I would say occurred to songs like these and this song. So this reminds me of some really fun moments and, of course, past friendships. So shout out to everybody out in Nova Scotia for always making me feel at home. Hey, if you're listening this far into the episode, I want to thank you so much. I just want to give a huge shout out to the West Coast of North America. Shout out to California and British Columbia for being the top province and state in North America to be consumers of the Cassius Morris Show. I love my audiences in both of those province and state, and I will be visiting some of you guys very soon in 2018 and 2019. The Cassius Morris Show is all over the place. My current goal is taking the podcast out to Rolling Loud in Miami, Florida, to do a slew of interviews with rappers. It's the biggest hip-hop festival in the world, and they have close to 25 hip-hop artists every single day, and I'm a fan of probably a dozen of each. So if I could go and do these interviews, it would mean the world to me. And not only that, it would mean the world to my viewers, and it would turn this show into what I'm trying to turn it into. And I think we're on the right track. I know we're on the right track because I'm hearing and seeing the reaction. But I have a certain vision for this show, and now that we're executing it, I think it needs to be brought to the mainstream public in a big way. And I think that going to a festival like Rolling Loud is a big way to get my big word out. You know, if we're going to go big, we're going to go big. I'm going to take the crew to the biggest hip-hop festival in the world, and we're going to do it big. The one concern that I have, there's so much concern because for things like this, you have to apply for media passes. And once you have your media pass, you know, you're not in the clear. You're never in the clear with events like these. So let me describe how it works. About a month before or a month and a half, they give you the option to sign up for a media pass, which would give you the opportunity to go and photograph most of the artists and be in the press room backstage. Now, a lot of the festivals are really good with setting up interviews with the artists once you have this press pass, but not every festival. I've had experiences at, for example, Squamish Media Festival 2015, Music Festival rather. I did media at that festival. And while they were wonderfully accommodating and they were a great festival and they had a great press room, I got one interview when I drove 20 hours from Edmonton to Squamish, British Columbia, which is right outside of Vancouver. I got one interview that lasted 5 minutes after that 20-hour drive out of a 2 or 3 day music festival. So to give you some understanding of the risk that's involved with this reward, this isn't a 20-hour drive. This isn't within the country. This is going to the United States of America, of which I've never set foot on U.S. soil, staying in an all-new neighborhood and state, one of the craziest states, so I've heard. No offense, of course, anyone in Florida. Much love to you guys. I love crazy in the States. So, you know, this is all pretty big stuff. So my focus right now is to get my ass out there. And not only that, but to take every single little opportunity that I get for an interview, a broadcast, a Facebook live stream, call into somebody else's podcast, whatever it takes. I want as many collective hours behind a microphone, speaking into it, so that when I am sat down, I don't care who I'm sat down with. If you sit me down with the President of the United States, I want to be able to deliver the most incredible interview you've heard with that person ever. Not the best in the last 10 years, not the best in the last 15. I want to create the best interviews that the people in the entertainment industry and people of note have ever done in their careers. And I will not rest until the product that I'm putting out on my pages is number one. So if there's anyone who is sort of waiting for this to be short-lived or isn't getting the message here, this isn't a joke. This isn't a drill. We're in it for the number one spot. As Drizzy said, being number two is just the first to lose. That's how I see it. Hey, I've gone on enough. Talk about personal narrative segments. That sure was a personal narrative segment. You just took a little detour into my mind. I'm very excited for this. Hey, thanks for listening to the Cassius Morris Show. We've come up to the end of the hour. For content that you can't even reach on all of our iTunes and Stitcher and all of our audio pages, you can go to youtube.com/Cassius Morris. I have a ton of video content, including me doing the news with a camera on me and other graphics if you want to see me actually do the news and see me interviewing people rather than just listen to it. I find it's a nice component to be subscribed to both. And of course, YouTube has these new rules where now actually they will not be paying creators unless they reach 1,000 subscribers. So we're at about 715, 16 subscribers right now. So all the people who can go to youtube.com/Cassius Morris and subscribe, it's a huge, huge help. You can also check me out on Twitter at Cassius Morris, Instagram at Cassius Morris _. I'm on Facebook, as is the show, at facebook.com/Cassius Show. Make sure to check out Comic Genius on CJSR FM 88.5 if you're in Edmonton, and of course CJSR.com worldwide, and now ComicGenius.com. We air Wednesdays 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, a hilarious comedy show. Hear me on there with Norm Shaw, the DJ and hypnotist, as we interview different guests every week and cover a wide variety of topics in the 2-hour show. Again, it's Wednesdays, 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. Mountain Standard Time on CJSR.com and CJSR FM 88.5 in Edmonton. But if you missed the original air date, go to our brand new website, which just launched today, ComicGenius.com, to listen to the show. So, until next time, this is Cassius Morris saying, rock on.